Hello, thank you for joining me on this leadership vlog today. I'm privileged that you would partner with me along your journey to becoming the best leader that you can be. Today's subject is mistakes were made. I remember a season of time where I played a lot of video games with my two sons as they were going through middle school and high school. I was doing my best to lead them and find ways to be part of their lives. So we played a lot of video games. They loved the first-person shooter games like Call of Duty and others. And I don't remember what specific game it came from, but it was one of those games where grenades were part of the game. And Dad was always last at the end of the game. And one of the reasons is I had trouble with grenades. I'd end up dropping a grenade too close to myself and I'd end up killing myself. And across the screen was flashed an interesting memorial. And it just said, mistakes were made. Mistakes were made. Dear ones, mistakes are a lot like grenades. Mistakes cause damage to us and to those that are in close enough proximity to us when we make those mistakes. And so it's important that we learn how to process through mistakes well. And as a leader, it's really important that we learn how to lead people through making mistakes. If we're going to be successful as a company, if we're going to be successful as a church or as a small group or whatever organization you're part of and you're leading, it's important we learn to understand what mistakes are, how they affect other people, and we deal with them well. So to do that, I want to deal with mistakes in two categories. First, the mistakes that others make, and secondly, mistakes that we make ourselves as leaders. How do you lead people who are making mistakes? And this is really important because we need to realize that people are watching how we handle people who've made mistakes. Not just the person who's making the mistakes, but others on our team and others in our corporate culture are going to be watching our leaders as to how we handle people who've made mistakes. Most people realize that it could have been them, and it might actually be them the next time. So learning to deal with people who make mistakes in a corporate culture, in a church culture, is really, really important. So here are three things really simple for you. Learn to cover people well. Learn to help people process well. And learn to restore people well. Learn to cover people well. What does cover mean? If I'm in my backyard and I'm painting something in the backyard and all of a sudden it looks dark on the horizon and I look at my phone and rain's coming, if I do not cover that project well, then the rain that comes, the atmosphere, just the conditions around my project will cause further damage to my project, right? So I want to cover my project well so that there's no damage done by the passing front going through. And mistakes need to be covered because first of all, mistakes are they're gonna produce their own cost in people's lives. But secondly, if mistakes are not covered well, there will be residual costs in the company and in the team and in the culture and also in the individual's lives. How do we cover them? Well, we cover them first by our reaction and second by our action. Our reaction and then our action. What's our reaction? If someone comes to fess up to a mistake and we go, oh my gosh, I can't believe. Chances of them coming to us again when they make another mistake are 0 to none. And in fact, they might be so horrified by fear that they might never take a risk again. And we as a church, we as an organization, as a company, we need them to learn how to take the right kind of risks if we're going to make the success that we want to make together. So we want to learn to cover people well and not overreact and not underreact. Just to give them, first of all, that reaction that causes their heart to go, okay, this is a safe place. This is a safe place. So first we cover them by our reaction, and second we cover them by our actions. We want to try to limit the awareness of this person's mistake to the appropriate sphere. Just like that grenade that falls to the ground, it may affect me the most because I mishandled it and it's a mistake of mine. But those in close proximity to me are going to be affected by that as well. But those who are across the battlefield won't even know that the grenade went off. Likewise, in my company, everyone doesn't need to know that Joe made a mistake on the third quarter for sales projections. It's irrelevant to the rest of the company, but it might be relevant to Joe and to his sales team management, right? And to me as the manager or the CEO, right? So it's important to limit the damage and the awareness of that mistake on behalf of the person who made it to the sphere that it's appropriate to. And if we're successful in doing that, we have covered them well. The second thing we want to do by way of restoring somebody or by way of helping someone through their own mistake is we cover them, and secondly, we want to help them process well. So if someone comes to me and say, hey, I realize I made a mistake, I say, oh, okay, tell me what you did. Tell me what happened. And that's a process question, because I'm wanting them, I'm gauging them, I'm wanting them to tell me, open up and tell me what the process was that got you to the mistake. And what was the mistake, and what potentially are the ramifications of your mistake. So we want to help people process through those things. What were the backdrop to your mistake? What got you to the choice or decision? Or what was going on the inside of you that made you take a wrong turn or speak out of turn or whatever you did? What was the thing that you did? And thirdly, what are the damages from what you did? And learning to process those well with people teaches them a great life skill. And it informs you as the leader as to the scope of the damage and what might be the restoration process, which in fact is the third phase of leading someone well through their mistakes. Learn how to restore well. What does it look like when someone makes a mistake and you cover them? Awesome. They feel like it's a safe place. That you have helped them debrief. Awesome. They're learning. That's great. But we want to get to a place of restoration. What is restoration? Restoration is that place where they're back on firm footing and foundation, not only in relationship with you, relationship with their team, but in relationship with the vision and the organization, right? They're fully restored. In fact, someone who's fully restored is even more valuable to the company. After they've gone through a process and learned what they've needed to learn, they're even more valuable to your success. So mistakes will be made. But helping people process through their mistakes is really important. And it's perhaps even most important how we process and lead ourselves through the mistakes that we make as we're leading. But we're going to use those same three things, except we'll mix them up a little bit. First, I would say it's important for us first to process well. That's number two when we're leading others, but it's probably number one for us. You might not have time to do that. You may be in the middle of a meeting and made a mistake and called someone out or had an attitude or whatever. And you may need to correct that immediately. Go ahead and correct that. But once you do that and have a break, go to the restroom and just get by yourself, do a 1-minute debrief, take a deep breath, clear your mind, clear your heart, and ask yourself some process questions. What just happened? What's the backdrop for that happening? And what do I need to do to fix it? So start as a good leader, as a great leader, start with yourself and process well if you've made a mistake. And in fact, if you have time, you're not in a meeting or it's not in a time crunch, take some time to process well with someone that you trust, a personal mentor or a spiritual father. So process well. Secondly, instead of covering yourself like you would cover others, you want to actually do the opposite. It might be counterintuitive. In the world we live in, we want to fig leaf as much as possible so that no one sees our mistakes, particularly as leaders, because they might take us out because they're gunning for us. But can I suggest to you that the exact opposite is what good leaders, in fact, great leaders do. They learn to uncover themselves. Again, not to the whole team. You don't need to grab the loudspeaker and say, hey, sorry, as your CEO, I'm sorry to report to you that I made a huge mistake and it's going to affect the company. You don't need to do that. But like the grenade that falls at your feet, it affects you. So process about your own personal journey and commit to a growth process. But who are those in close proximity that your mistake actually affected? If it's in a meeting, then go back to that meeting the next time and start with a restoration process. But uncover yourself, because it's that humility that will restore the confidence and trust of your team in you as a leader. It's that authenticity that will draw them again, where you might have made a mistake and been harsh or done whatever, and mistakes left undone will cause mistrust in your organization. But when you address them well and you own them and you uncover yourself and say, listen, I recognize I made a mistake, it just endears your team to you and it will draw them. Even though there might be some initial awkwardness, and that's normal. Eventually, as they see that you're committed to your own personal journey, and you're not afraid that other people see you make a mistake, then they will really feel valued and drawn in. And then once you have processed well and uncovered yourself, lead yourself fully back into restoration. What's that look like? Don't take it out on yourself. Don't require yourself a cost of yourself for making a mistake that others wouldn't require of you. Right? Learn how to restore yourself. What does that look like? Make restoration for whatever it is that you did wrong. If it affects other people, then make sure that there's a restoration there. Take that next meeting and say, listen, I really blew it last time. You know me, maybe that's not my pattern, or maybe it is my pattern. I just recognize that, and I'm so sorry. I don't want to be that kind of leader. I want to be this kind of leader. So I want to ask you to forgive me, and I want to commit to you that I'm going to do better. And what that will do is will restore your place in the hearts and minds of those that you're leading. Tell them how much you've learned from your mistake, and invite them into your process. Invite them into your journey as you're overcoming your own mistakes. They will feel valued and they will feel safe in their own skin because they too are making mistakes, and they'll recognize, hey, this guy, this gal, they're worth following. Learning how to lead people through mistakes is a very valuable skill set as you are on your journey to becoming the best leader that you can be.